Hey guys, it's your boy Wolf coming back at you. Round two of recording this video. Seems like the editing software I was using corrupted the audio to the actual commentary that I was given. Shout out to a few of my friends who've noticed it pretty quickly. I apologize to the people who did view it or did attempt to view it, and it got nothing in return. Hopefully, this one will go better. As I sit here, it's about almost 11 p.m. my time. Trying to do this again. I'm going to try to get it under 15 to 20 minutes at most. So close in that last video. We got there to 25 minutes. So work in progress on that one. Before I get into the TNA Against All Odds review show, I just want to give you guys a huge thank you. When I started this journey, month and a half, maybe 2 months by this point, I had 9 followers or subscribers, and last I looked, I'm up to 111. That's amazing. I'm hoping you guys are enjoying the content. Please keep watching. Please, share it, subscribe it, trying to get that blue chew money. No, I'm just kidding. So I just want to say thank you guys again for this, and with me trying to keep this down to 20 minutes. Let's jump right into TNA Against All Odds. Took place at the Mullet Arena, not a small arena. I mean, smaller side, but it did house the Arizona Coyotes for a season before they moved to Salt Lake. Seats about maybe 4,000, and it looked pretty full to me. Um, I just want to give a quick kind of, I guess, commentary on TNA overall. A lot of people are claiming how WWE, NXT are burying them. The proof is in their attendance. I don't think TNA is losing sleep over the fact that their world champion was in WrestleMania in front of probably more fans than they draw in a year. At least back then, probably not now. Um, but it's just an amazing accomplishment to have, and their attendance numbers, and they're probably turning some type of profit at this point, at least temporarily. So huge shout out to them. I know, a lot of fans want wrestlers themselves, to win and be main eventers and everything. And, a guy like Joe Hendry is going to get there. This was more or less just to give him that showcase, maybe even to see how popular he is in front of, 70,000 fans. Um, so my throat's a little dry. So I'm going to go ahead and take a drink from my Stanley. Yeah, I'm a Stanley basic bitch. And I don't usually do that, but with it being so late, my voice is a little hoarse here. Um, So let's get into the start. As I've mentioned before, I am an absolute production slut when it comes to how clean the arena is, how the setup is, where the hard camera is, um, all of that stuff. And I got to give TNA a 10 out of 10. It was great. I love how just the TNA logo is in the center. You don't want to do too much. WWE's doing too much with their canvas, and I get it. You got all these sponsors now, but TNA's was super slick. The color schemes were fantastic. Um, Everything just looked top notch from top to bottom. Production can go a long way. Can make a bad show better. Can make a great show iconic. So a lot of people don't realize how much effort goes into the actual production and the logistics of it all. TNA brought it with that. So let's jump into the matches here. I didn't see the pre-show match. I didn't watch this live. I watched it on YouTube. I didn't plan on watching it, but my wife and I were both bored and happened to see that it was free on their YouTube page and decided to give it a shot. And probably one of the best random YouTube choices we've had in a little while. So I didn't see the Ash by Elegance versus Zia Brookside and her team, but I saw like the clip that they played during the show, and that's all I can comment on. And generally, the way I comment on things is if I remember something, because I don't take notes like Jim Cornette and others during these shows where, I want to talk about certain things or whatever. I try to just watch them and then kind of react in the moment. And if I remember that reaction, that means something good happened or something bad happened based on the reaction I had. Um, so let's get into the first match. Steve Macklin defeated Mance Warner. For the international championship, I thought Macklin looked great. Um, the commentary team really put him over as a military veteran. How he just finished climbing the 9/11 memorial. He looked great. He made Mance Warner look pretty good. I'm not completely sold on Mance Warner. The fact that he announces himself for Bucksnort, Tennessee, that gives me Bunkhouse Buck vibes. And he was all right in WCW, but he wasn't a main player, and so that's kind of the connotation I get. Great gimmick, but yeah, it's got a very limited shelf life, and I think pretty much where he was at tonight, or when Against All Odds happened, is his limit as it is right now. I don't have anything really to talk about the match itself other than it was fine. Again, like I said, if I make a comment of something, then I'll definitely, think it's better or not. Let's talk about Jeff Hardy's, Matt Hardy and Leon Slater again, and the Hometown Man defeating the System. Hometown Man, dude's got some fantastic entrance music. Um, the crowd was it wasn't high for the opener, but it was bubbling. Like you could tell that they were ready to explode. And when the Hometown Man music started playing and he came out, it just unloaded, and it was pretty much there for the rest of the night. So credit to TNA for taking a shot with that, thinking that it would land, and it landed pretty hard. The match itself was pretty good. The fact Jeff Hardy can still walk, let alone do anything like a swanton, is extremely impressive to me. Leon Slater did a spot where he basically jumped from the center of the ring all the way over the turnbuckle and post and landed on them. The balls on that dude to even attempt that is just insane, and he hit it perfectly. Um, that's pretty much all I got to say. JDC, he did his Fandango kind of, little tease there, but he didn't fully commit to it. I thought that was fantastic. Eddie Edwards always, he's never going to get enough flowers for his work just because he spent most of his time in TNA. But I could see him being one of the guys that eventually goes to NXT. Talk more about that later. Mustafa Ali defeats Jason Hotch in a match where it was the the four work kind of arguing with each other. I gotta be honest, I had to take care of some emergency personal stuff, and I did not get to watch this match. A lot of times these matches are what they're called popcorn matches, where it's really just kind of guys are doing out there doing a decent match just so some of the people can get up, go to the bathroom, get something to drink, get something to eat. It's it is a negative like kind of connotation. The internet kind of started calling these, the piss break matches. I think that's unfair. I think that's, derogatory, especially for Mustafa Ali. I know his work more than Jason Hodge, but Jason Hodge has a great look. So I don't have a doubt that this wasn't a fine match. I just unfortunately did not get a chance to watch it. And I decided, I don't want to watch it with the intent of commenting on it here because I feel like my commentary would be disingenuous. So next we got Masa Shalamovich versus Lei Ying Lee. This, in my opinion, was probably the best technical match of the night. They did a lot of technical wrestling, a lot of, martial arts looking moves. They all looked tight. They all looked snug. They were stiff, and I really appreciate them bringing their A game like they did. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that TNA has the best women's division in all of wrestling, but it's pretty damn good. And when they have two people who can have good matches, you have a match like this. The aftermath saw Kelly come back and put the chains on the mat. Is she meaning that they're going to get back together, or she wants to get back together? Does that mean that she's jealous of the championship being with Masha? Who knows? But great way to tie into something to make you want to watch Impact. Next, we got Frankie Kazarian beating Joe Hendry. That one was a surprise for me. But if you think about it, if Joe Hendry is going to be finishing up and going to either NXT or WWE, He's got to give the rub to some of the local, or not local, but you know what I mean, the talent that is TNA. Frankie Kazarian, one of the OGs, like I looked it up and he won his first title at the end of, it was either end of 2003 or early 2004. So he's about as TNA original as you can get without working that first episode. Um, I was surprised by this just because, originally I thought, well, Joe Hendry still got some mileage left. They're mostly saying that his contract's up till the end of the year. So this is a little early for it, but if you're going to give someone the rub, it should be Frankie Kazarian. Um, Talking a little bit earlier, I'll get into this now. Um, Frankie Kazarian, like I'm thinking of guys who can beat Trick Williams for the TNA World Title, and from looking at it from WWE's perspective, it's got to have someone who has name value and is also considered, definitive TNA. And I mentioned earlier Eddie Edwards, he's a good candidate. Frankie Kazarian obviously is a good candidate, and if they have him beating Joe Hendry, like that could be the tie-in right there. But also they had a segment with Eric Young, which I thought was just fantastic. Just like a ghoul in the night, he just comes in and goes, "I know it was you. I know it was you." Just pointing at a security guard who's like, "Dude, I don't get paid enough for this shit." But it was just funny because he just did that, and then they were just like, "You gotta go," and he just turns and looks, "It was you. I know it was you," and then just leaves. Perfect. Um, I forgot to mention another segment, which was AJ Francis and KC Navarro. Their segment was fantastic. It was a great buffer, which is basically, you just want to bring the crowd down a little after such a hot match. You want them to scale back down a little because you don't want them to get burned out. So that was perfect. It was well done. I don't want to say like it was, meant to cool themselves off. It was just meant to get the crowd ready for a next match. And they did that in spades. Mike Santana is a true talent. Amazing how far he's come since the team of Santana Ortiz. I expect big things for him. So next we got the Hollywood Heels, Nick and Ryan Nemeth, and they defeated the Rascals. I don't know why they don't use the Hollywood Heels name more. They have it on all their gear, but TNA doesn't call them that, and I don't know why, because I think it's a fantastic name. Their theme music is banging. And I didn't mention this with the Hometown Man, but his music was banging as well. I'm convinced that every other wrestling promotion has better theme music than WWE. It's probably going to change soon now that WWE is having real bands, not real bands, but mega bands, start writing music for their talents. But man, it's hard to see how far the WWE themes have fallen. Um, you can't really count Cody's because that goes back to even before WWE. And then the others, like I think the only reason they're popular is because they have that catchy, like the Seth Rollins or even the Lyra's theme song, who I think the most interesting thing is her theme song. Um, but man, some of these songs were just absolute fire. Uh, Nothing really stood out to me about this match. Nothing I remember. Other than the Nemeths looking like absolute mega stars, absolutely looking like they were ready, to go into WrestleMania looking as slick as they did. Um, so yeah, that's all I got to say about that. It was probably a fine match. If I don't have anything negative to say about it, that means it was just okay. Next, we got Santino Marella defeating Sheriff Robert Stone. This was probably my favorite match of the night. The women's match was probably the best wrestling match, but this was probably my favorite overall match. The start just, earlier in the show, they had Stone show up with a envelope of $5,000 asking, Matt Cardona, just look the other way, if Tessa and, Alicia Fox or Victoria Crawford gets involved, here's a little change to make you think otherwise and looking in their direction. And he didn't, didn't agree, didn't disagree. He just took the money. And I think anybody would. So at the very start, when he saw the brass knuckles, that reaction was great. When he went over to Santino, and Santino he was going to check Santino, and Santino just reaches behind him and just pulls out this giant ass pipe and just goes, "Well, I knew he was going to cheat, so I just came prepared." The one thing I will point out about this match is they didn't overuse the special referee gimmick. Matt Cardona was involved and he made his presence felt, but the match wasn't all about him. When you have a special referee, a lot of times they do too many referee spots, and that leads to the match being more about the referee than the actual people in the match. They did a great balance with that. And, I'll come back to the word balance because I think that defines TNA as a whole. Great match. Santino wins. Everyone's happy. Afterwards, he cuts probably his best promo ever because you could tell it was genuinely him. It wasn't, the Santino Morella gimmick. It was the person. When the crowd started chanting, "You still got it," you can tell like there was a visible difference in his demeanor, and he got so fired up, Tommy Rich level fired up, that he, just went in and cut one of his best promos ever. Do I think that he's done actually wrestling? Probably yes. And this kind of was like an unofficial swan song, just because, with him, you never know. Like there might be a feud or storyline coming up that requires him to fight just like this one. And, you never know with wrestling. Nobody ever really goes away forever. I know that by example. So we end with Trick Williams beating Elijah, and it was a little nonsense, little tomfoolery going on with that one. My big things about this was Trick Williams looked like an absolute megastar. He looked like someone who should be world champion. He presented himself as someone who is a world champion. And Elijah, I don't remember him being as yoked as he was. He looked fantastic. Like he looked like an absolute megastar himself. You know, it could be an interesting thing with him. I I would like to see Elijah be world champion, but I think like he's got too much of that WWE stink on him. He is a WWE guy more so than a TNA guy. But he's great at rallying the troops. He got the crowd really into it even before the match started when he just came out and he cut that little promo beforehand. So I thought they did a great job. They put enough seeds of doubt in to where you really thought Elijah might win it, but in the end he didn't. Trick Williams retained, and everything overall that this show was great. Check it out. It was so good that my wife and I looked up to see if we got Access TV, and we do. So we're gonna add TNA to our lineup. I don't know how much of it I'm going to watch. In my 20s, I would have loved wrestling every day. But now when I'm 40, every day is just a lot. I don't watch NXT at all. Like we tried watching it when it first went to CW and we just couldn't make it through it. So it's hard when, you got Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes more on Saturday if there's multiple shows or in a PLE. That's just too much for me. So I don't know how often I'll cover any of those. But we'll see how things are on that. If it's like a really special show or something, then I might. I'm trying to avoid just doing reviews and previews. But obviously right now that's all I got going on at the moment. Still waiting for this knee to get a little better. Might have had a little setback, I don't know. But overall, I thought this was a great show. And to come back and to end with this conclusion, I said the word balance. TNA may not be the number one promotion in the world, but after watching this show, I truly believe it is the most balanced promotion in the world today. Everything seems to fit together. Everything seems to work together. The championships all have, captivating or interesting feuds around them. Your talent is pretty balanced from top to bottom. So While they might not be the best, they may not have the most visibility. I think they're worth checking out. I think, at least turning them on and giving them a chance. I think you'll find yourself pleasantly surprised. The TNA name has, that toxic feeling whenever you say it or, think about it. And it may not be as hot as it was when Scott D'Amore was in charge, but I think it's still really, really good. Huge shout out to Delirious, who I did a wrestling seminar with, and he was a fantastic guy. He's so knowledgeable. And it because his wrestling career wasn't, main level like worldwide, just strictly kind of Ring of Honor and Indies, he doesn't get enough credit. But he's fantastic. Tommy Dreamer, I've worked multiple shows with. I was his wheelman for one of the shows he worked, so I got to get to really know Tommy. You learn a lot when you're with someone for 14 hours in one day. So yeah, this is my TNA Against All Odds review, kind of overall, just saying TNA, give them a shot. Go watch the show. It's available for free on YouTube. That's how I watched it, and so I'm telling you right here, give it a shot. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So, as old school 1940s and 50s ringside commentator with Jack Little would say, that's all there is. There isn't anymore. And so I'm going to sign off with that.